Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast here. I don't know if I'm calling it a podcast these days. I just like to talk to people that I've met in my journeys. And so today I have Elin, and we've done a lot of videos throughout the years together.
Yeah, we can't shut up, it seems. We have always so
Yeah.
much to talk about.
Well, it's really crazy. Like I was just talking about this. I just did my podcast with my friend Kubi, who we've been doing a podcast for over a year. And the reason we are friends is because she just randomly messaged me one day and is like, "Do you want to come hang out in England?" And I was like, "Okay." And then I just like rented a car and drove out to England to meet her, and now we do a podcast together. And so I can't even remember how like you and I officially met, besides us just making content around the same time,
Oh, that's actually a good question.
like
I
5 years
honestly,
ago.
I honestly, I cannot remember. I have no idea how
It's
how
crazy.
we can like sit here today. Because you've been
Well,
here, you met me in Sweden, and I've shown you the rocks, the old rocks.
I've not. I've like touch the area in which they've existed,
Mm,
because that's one of the first things that I remember from you is not walking on the stones,
yes,
not walking on the
absolutely,
petroglyphs.
absolutely.
And that's like your claim to fame now, is you got those signs put up, right?
Yes, yes, but officially, it's not like me who has done it. I just nagged the government enough for them to put them up.
Well, hey, that still counts. But
Yeah.
for any of my, so obviously, I've been making videos for a long time. You've been making videos on YouTube, but the last time we did a project together was about a year and a half. So there could be a lot of new people here that don't know who you are. So if you could just give us an introduction into who you are and the work that you do.
Yes. Hello. My name is Elin Pirso, also known as the Moose Lady online. I am currently studying my master's within archaeology. I have been working within the museum world. I have been head researcher of museum exhibitions and done some lectures and stuff and taught children about history and archaeology and all that fun stuff. And I also do social media and that's how we met through Instagram. Um, I have a not too active TikTok account. I just put stuff out there into the ether so people can find me. But I also have a YouTube that is semi. Sometimes it's active and sometimes it's less because of my studies. So yeah.
Yeah, but you're starting to
Uh,
get back into it though. You're starting to release some
yeah.
videos. You said you're working on a new one.
Yes, I am. Currently, I'm working on one that should be released next week, latest.
Yeah, very good. And that's just all under Moose Lady, right? For people like at Moose
Yeah.
Lady.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, Moose Lady. I am
very
Moose
good.
Lady anywhere, everywhere.
That's the easiest way seriously, you type in Moose Lady, you might get a
Yeah.
weird picture of a moose, but then her right next to it.
Yes, there I am.
Well, very good.
Yep, yep.
And then for any audience that is curious, I mean, like I've said, we've done quite a few projects. Probably the best one of my favorite is where I actually did go to Sweden, and I was hosted by Lynn and her wonderful husband, and they took me around Sweden for a little bit. And so we did a video
Yes.
together talking about the Tottenham rock carvings. We went to Uppsala. So yeah, there's a video like that. I think it's just called Ancient Sweden. So you definitely should check that out. But she was a pregnant moose back then. She didn't just have a
Yes,
lot of
I
sweet
was
rolls.
much. Yeah, no, no, no. I was very much heavier. But yeah, no, it was a fun time actually, and I really, really enjoyed that video you did of the petroglyph over us traveling to Tanum and these different places. It was really, I really still enjoyed that video. I watch it sometimes actually.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now, honestly, that's probably one of the most impactful things that I did in my travels. And the thing that's crazy, I think I was only in Sweden like 4 days. It was such a fast
Oh
trip.
yeah, oh yeah, and
It was
we
crazy.
just hammered like early mornings, late
I was
evenings, and
so
we just took
tired.
you everywhere. Yeah.
Well, and it was in the summer too, so the sun wasn't setting. So it was like the sun was setting at like midnight.
Hmm.
And so I remember like watching the sunset. I'm like, oh, it's 1 in the morning, and then we would
Hmm.
be up
Yes.
at like 5 in the morning to go do more things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was crazy, but it was actually really, really fun because as in my experience as a pregnant lady, it felt really good to do something and be out moving and so on, because
Yeah.
otherwise the hip starts really hurting. So it was
Yeah,
perfect. Perfect.
and And obviously, we're recording these for other people, so can't just sit here and gush at each other all the time. But I do want to say that, like, looking back in my travels, seriously, one of the most impactful things was my visit with you and getting to see the petroglyphs and my tours around Sweden. So I'm so thankful for our friendship and everything we've done, and I'm so glad we're
Yeah.
still doing stuff together.
Yes. Still going strong.
So I think a good lead in. So the reason we're actually, I feel like we didn't talk for like 7 months, and then like randomly I saw like a reel about, or no, you had posted about
Mhm.
the grave robbings, and then I think I had
Yes.
also then like shared with you like the new Viking runes discovered in America. So
Yes.
those will be some catalysts for today's conversation for sure. But definitely want to talk a little bit more because this is really something I wanted to share is the issue with grave robbing that still exists today. So definitely, the platform is yours. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my lord. Okay, so I have taken notes so I don't go away in different ramblings because I could very much easily do that. So let me start at the beginning. One
Beginning
of
of
the
time.
biggest burials. Yeah, I will take my time. So one of the biggest burial sites in Sweden from the Iron Age got plundered around 2 months ago in the beginning of May this year to 2025. And this was something that I talked about both on TikTok and on Instagram, where you saw it, which led to you talking to me today. And this place is called Annunshög, and it's a very, very important historical site in Sweden. And it holds archaeological leavings as far back as the Bronze Age. What we know today, it probably, passes that and go well into the Stone Age as well, I'm sure. And yeah, it has been a very important historical location all throughout Swedish history, even after the Iron Age as well. And it was in May systematically plundered with the help of metal detectors. First, they found around 50 holes dug in the area, and in these holes they could they lifted up the dirt, and they could see that there were imprints of artifacts that have been removed from these holes, and the last number I heard was 70 plus. So they might still find new evidence of more holes being dug there, possibly more. And what is extra distressing about this location being plundered and robbed, besides that it is an ancient grave burial site, it is that this location has not been investigated properly by archaeologists. So it has not been archaeologically excavated in any serious way before. So what that means is that we have now, due to this grave robbing, we have lost the historical context. It's something we call within archaeology, we call it in situ, to dig something up in situ. It means that finding it as it was left in order to understand the wider context of the ancient leaving itself and together with other ancient leavings. And that has now been destroyed forever. It is gone. It is poof. And that is extra distressing because we will never know, if not someone tells on each other, we will never know what was there. And then we have lost so much vital information about this site and the people who are buried there and has been in the area.
And what is
So,
the reason that people do this? Is it for personal gain? Like they just like just amateur people with metal detectors and they just don't care, or is there
oh,
something deeper and more nefarious going on?
oh, this is how this is as dark as it gets. This is greed. So it's greed, and it is people with way too much. There's greed on both sides. There's people with way too much money that want to have exclusive, artifacts that no one else has, and I have the money to buy them, so I should have them. We have that type of greed, but we also have the greed on these grave robbers because they can make a lot of money on these artifacts through these auction houses around the world. And you cannot in okay, so I should talk about the law. In Sweden, you cannot even hold a metal detector in your hand in your own front yard without having a written consent and license from the National Heritage Board of Sweden, and I think also the police. And you're looking at, like, you're not even allowed to stand there with it, let alone be near any ancient leaving sites and any ancient things at all. You can face like years of jail time being caught with that in your hand. So it's completely like, there's not, like, you cannot be hobby metal detectorist in Sweden at all. It is like, it's a super serious crime over here. So it
Was that
is
just because there are so many like ancient sites that have been undiscovered or uncatalogued and things like that?
yes, it is because of the ancient sites, and it's also we want to protect the cultural heritage because we have not dug up all of these different locations. We can touch upon why archaeologists in Sweden haven't done that in a little while further down in our conversation. But um, it is to preserve the cultural heritage for the experts and for the future, um, and also, like, because it's so easy, like it's so easy to then say that, oops, but I just accidentally, and like, if you have a non-tolerance policy, it's so easy to say, like, you have no business having this in your hand, you have no business being here, like, you know what it's about then. It's, yeah, so it is to protect, yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine, my understanding of international law, like, the best way to stop this is from getting people to actually do it. Like, stopping people from being out there with the metal detector, because once the artifacts have left Sweden, there's not a lot of laws that protect these artifacts, I imagine.
Yeah, even within Sweden, we had we had a pretty distressing case not too long ago either in Sweden, where an auction house in Stockholm actually sold off around what was it, 26 different artifacts spanning from Stone Age to Iron Age. So essentially what this auction house in Stockholm did, selling our history off to some rich person that wanted to feel special, and they got the wait, what is it? Authentication. Is that the word?
Authentication.
Authentication. They got the authentication verified then by archaeologists at the Swedish National Heritage Board. So, yeah. So it happens within Sweden as well. And what they do is that they have these magical papers because the United Nations have laws and regulations about these things. Obviously, since we have, like, ancient Roman stuff, we have Britain, we have Greece, and all of these artifacts can go around through Europe, right? From the east and west and everywhere. So in 1970, they laid down new laws and regulations about these things in order to stop the buying and selling of these type of artifacts. And this is actually also, this type of conventions, they also cause trouble for the British Museum every now and again as well, because as is well known, they have a lot of different artifacts from different parts of the world that probably didn't come there very ethically. And it's the same thing there, that they can claim, just as these auction houses, that we have this magical paper where it says that before the United Nations made this law, this comes from a private collection, you see, that some dude had somewhere before this time. So we have the paper that has the year and the date and some little signature, and then it's all right. So they find loopholes through these things.
Yeah, it's almost like having like a middleman, or like, what is it when they laundering? It's like, oh, well, it wasn't like the person that stole it. That we're not the original person that stole it, so we're
Mm-hmm.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's just an inheritance. Like the
yeah,
dude who had it is long gone, so and that is what they do. And sometimes what has happened in Sweden is that people actually show up, and this is why in Sweden we are very silent while we are conducting research archaeologically. Usually, if it is like a bigger thing with a lot of jewelry and swords and so, because it has people have come from outside of Sweden into Sweden. When it has gotten dark, they have gone into these places, these archaeological diggings, and just looted stuff, gone outside of Sweden again, and sell them as, oh, but these are actually Viking Age swords that come from Poland or Lithuania, or yeah. So
yeah, and then
it is the whole thing.
Yeah, can you go a little bit into, because like something else that I constantly see, and we were talking about before we hit record, is like articles like saying, "Ooh, new Viking Age grave discovered," and they really try to hype it up. But the leaving laws in Sweden are quite different than they are in a lot of places, because you're only allowed to open like so many graves a year, right, or something like that.
Actually, 90% of all archaeological investigation, and 90%, it is really 90%, happens due to infrastructure, either replacements or development. So when a new square is to be built, and they need to change out old pipes or something, they can find a Viking Age grave. They can find, most of the things in Sweden have actually been found during the 1800s, where people were just going around looking for them, 1700s, 1600s, 1800s. But these newer finds that we find today, they happen because a road needs to be built, a hospital needs to be built, and so on. So they take down a forest somewhere, or they remove an old square, and then they find new things, and that's 90%. 10% is for research, and this is also due to that it has to do with economics, but as well as I said, we know where most places actually are already.
Yeah, and then kind of going a little into, so through your work, you've started to get into finding things, and I know we have to be a little bit vague.
Yes.
But can you tell us a little bit of your process, within archaeology and within your degree and your own work, and this process of actually finding a grave?
Oh yeah. So it again, I'm not allowed to specify where or give it away anyhow, but and this comes from my own hyperfixation on ancient stones, and also my education and so on, that I am constantly out seeing these different locations and ancient graves and structures, and and after a while you tend to realize or recognize these signs in nature. So actually, while I've been taking a walk several times at a very beautiful location, I've just been walking my baby there, just back and forth, and then all of a sudden I started noticing structures in the woods, completely buried in leaves and forest and trees and so on. But when I took a closer look, then I started recognizing that, this is man-made, because there are stones that are standing up, like stones that, they don't fall like this. They fall like that. And stones don't fall like this in 11 meters in a row, neatly next to each other. So I recognized, and then I also recognized that because with Stone Age graves, they are usually facing the sun. Their openings are always southwest there. So where the sun rises is where the opening is. And I recognize that, okay, this long corridor here, it is facing towards the sunrise. So I had some archaeologists, some more, skilled and not skilled. What is it called? What you get with time?
Experience.
Experience. Thank you. Much more experienced and experts within megalithic graves and Stone Age in Scandinavia overall. And I had them out there, and they took a little look, and they kicked some leaves away, and they measured, and they talked a little bit, and it is highly likely that it is a Stone Age gallery grave that I found. It's from the last part of the Stone Age. Yeah. Completely sick. And this is one of the things that usually never happens, that you find an undiscovered grave. So I am very excited to see where the investigation will take us. I'm very much, they have promised to tell me, show me, keep me in the loop completely with
Yeah.
that one.
No, that's really
Yep.
cool. And I know that like, this is a little bit of a side, but from my exploration of like the Celtic world and things like that
Yeah.
is a lot of people, because we have this image of Stonehenge or New Grange or Clavacarans or something like that, or even Uppsala, is a lot of the times these sites have been reconstructed and for visibility, or even something with the petroglyphs, if they've been repainted for
Mm-hmm.
visibility. Like if you actually look up pictures of like what Stonehenge looked like 100 years ago or New
Mm-hmm.
Grange, they're just piles of rocks. And it's really
Yes.
interesting the decisions we've made throughout time to one, find these things, or shoot, even like the pyramids, like a lot of the pyramids in like
Mm-hmm.
Mexico or in South America, like were just
Mm-hmm.
a forest. And it's
Yes.
like, and then we cleared the trees away. And it's really incredible how much of these ancient sites are actually just hidden, and we really can't see them until like someone like you or another archaeologist with that eye
Mm-hmm.
recognizes the patterns of ancient history. And there are quite a few things I imagine out there that are still yet to be discovered in certain places.
Yes, yeah, certainly. You have to wear those glasses on you. Like, you have to know what you're looking for in order to, especially when it comes to, as you say, Stonehenge and so on. Like, um, to the untrained eyes, these are just piles of rock, and that's what they come across. And like, yeah, it is very hard to um, differentiate between a pile of rock that is just a pile of rock and a pile of rock that contains bones from the Stone Age or Iron Age or Bronze Age. Um, so yeah, no, and I think that's good that you touch upon that. That many of these places have been reconstructed; they weren't found like that. So there is a lot of work that has a lot of passionate work that has gone into restoring these ancient sites for other people in today's world to experience. It's actually, it's really heartwarming when you think about
Yeah.
it.
So I lucky enough to see a lot of ancient sites now. Have you ever been to an ancient site you thought was reconstructed or preserved poorly? Because there is, to me, a hierarchy. Like certain places, it's like, wow, you did a really good job, and then other places, it's like,
Mm,
whoa, like this is not very good.
definitely. No, definitely. So for a place to be reconstructed good, it either needs tourism. So tourists need to know about it. Like in the case of Annunshög, it has the place in Sweden that was grave robbed. A lot of people know about it and come there, like tourists, to see it. Or it needs to have a strong local community that identifies with the cultural heritage site, whatever it may be. Those two factors is what keeps an ancient site alive and reconstructed. Um, and I have seen so many examples of poorly taken care of heritage sites, and especially Runestones, which breaks my
Mm.
heart. That is one of my favorite um, ancient leavings for
Do you have an
sure.
approximation? I know I knew this number at one point. I mean, what's the approximation for the amount of runestones in Sweden? I mean, it's in the thousands. I know.
I think it's around. Oh, okay, there's a,
Approximation.
yeah, there's a difference. Let's say 2,000. Um, let's say around 2,000 right now. But there
Yeah.
is like a little bit of how you count, because there are are they runestones? Are they grave lids? Are they, a little stick? So we count them usually through carvings, so rune carvings in general, and not only standing stones. But I think we have around 2,000 standing stones in Sweden.
Yeah.
So the carvings is like, much, much, much. That number is much, much higher.
And this is a question I don't think I know the answer to. In Sweden, are all runestones considered like public property or property of the state, or are they also on private property and still technically owned by people?
In Sweden, you cannot own cultural heritage because the cultural heritage law clearly states, and that's the first point in the cultural heritage law, and which is great with my education. I've also studied law because of it, so no one can bullshit me about those things, because you need to know when you are out and digging and like looking at these sites. The first rule, or the first paragraph in the cultural heritage law of Sweden says that we all, as human beings, own the cultural heritage, and we all need to look after it. It is not only up to the state, it is up to everyone. Every human being that comes across it needs to respect the cultural heritage. And there are people that have, megalithic graves in their backyard. Many people, they have runestones in their
one of the
backyard.
places we went to see the petroglyph was literally on someone's farm.
Yes,
like they're literally their
okay.
farmhouse, and then the petroglyphs.
Yeah, exactly. And it is more of a nuisance to them than it is to the public, because they have no right to close off that cultural heritage for anyone. But of course, when you go to these sites, and if something is in someone's backyard, you can always, knock on the door and say, hey, I'm sorry, I don't want to be a nuisance. I'm interested in history. I see you have a runestone in your backyard. Can I look at it? Can I take pictures? Is that okay? Because maybe someone's kids is out, or like, you never know. So, but they have no right to. They don't own anything. They can never own cultural heritage. It's owned by all human beings.
Yeah, and I definitely want to say, like, for any traveling viewers, particularly us Americans that always get a bad reputation when we travel. So I feel like people are like, "Oh, those dirty Americans," But anyone that's traveling, like what I've learned in my travels is, talking to the people, especially people in the countryside, even if you're a little bit worried of the language barrier, especially in the Scandinavian countries and Finland and Estonia, like English is pretty widely spoken, at least in a moderate way. Because one of the I bring this up is because a lot of the places you can Google search, like, oh, I want to go to a runestone, I want to go to this petroglyph, or for me it was a rock, like a rock painting in Finland, and I Google Maps it, and I drove, and all of a sudden I'm in this guy's yard, and behind his house is the rock painting, and I just walk up and I just see him. I'm like, didn't want to sound the most American possible. I'm like, hello, sir. I would like to see your rock painting, please.
Yeah.
But he was so like happy. He's like, I've never had an American come to see this rock painting. And he's like, but thank you for asking for permission. He's like, a lot of people don't ask for permission. They go and they have fires down there or barbecues. He's like, I don't like that. He's like, I just, if you want to go check it out, that's fine. But he was really, really helpful. And it was really nice interaction, because I'm in the middle of nowhere in Finland. And I'm just a random American that showed up to this dude's house to look at rock paintings.
No, I can imagine he got very excited. Usually people do, because they always, usually they actually have a story to tell about the stones and the paintings and the carvings and so on. Once I went out, also middle of nowhere, but in Sweden, so, I could talk, obviously. But I met this very, very old lady outside of a farmhouse, and I asked her if I could see. There was a runestone in the area, but it wasn't. This was way before they had tracked them out on a map, which is very convenient nowadays. You can see them on the maps. But I asked her if she knew, and she knew exactly. She must have been 85 plus, little old lady. And then she said that you should talk to my son. He can show you. And then 60-year-old man came around the corner, and he told me that, yeah, it's a bit awkward and shameful, but it was actually my grandfather who accidentally blew it up once in the field over there. So, and when he showed the runestone to me, you could see it has been blown up. They have put it back together again. But they also showed me, not too far away, there was also a sacrificial stone, so copmark stone from the Bronze
Mm.
Age. And those type of things happen when you ask people. You get more information, you get background, you get stories. And as you said in your like example in Finland, people are usually very happy that you are being respectful. Like it goes so long, such a long way to just dare to ask.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And again, from my travels, learning to say thank you in many different languages is very helpful,
Yes.
and it goes a long way.
Yes, yes. You should have a little list on every language, like thank you, kiitos, tak, tak.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, please, thank you.
Yeah.
Basic numbers. You're good to go in like most countries. You can
Oh yeah.
communicate so well.
And in the Nordics, you come such like, if you're being polite, people will love you forever. Like being polite is the key to anyone's heart over here.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But something I kind of wanted to bring up because this is a question someone had for us,
Yeah.
and obviously it was a little bit more on the spiritual side. So, is there a site that you've been to that you feel really deep like spiritual connection to, or just a connection to personally?
Um, hmm. Yeah, I mean, in my case, there are many that I feel connected to, but I mean, yeah. Now I need to think. I've seen my fair share of
Yeah, well,
this.
yeah, I would say like it
Mm,
was interesting for me. I'll give you time to think and I'll ramble, but like
okay.
Uppsala to me was not as special as I thought it would be. And maybe it's because it's been overhyped because it's one of the few things that Americans and Westerners and everyone else knows about Sweden is Uppsala. But I didn't feel something there. I mean, it's because I was expecting it. Whereas like being at the oh gosh, I can't remember the name. The boat grave, the very big boat grave.
Yeah,
Um,
Blomsholm.
yeah,
Blomsholm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one was really special, and it's like I never heard about that one before, and so maybe there was this element of pressure of like going to a place like Stonehenge, like same thing. Stonehenge, I felt nothing.
Mm.
So I didn't feel anything, and so but it's always the smaller sites that haven't been almost. I use a language of a friend I went to Stonehenge with. He's like, it's like people have masturbated the spirit from it. Uh, and like in a way, I kind of agree. Like anytime I've gone to one of the popular places, like it has felt like people
Mm.
have almost sucked the spirit out of it because it's become so popular. But then I go to these like random little like long barrel graves or something like that, and just like I feel so emotionally connected to these spaces. And like you, I have many. Like I can't give you like one place that's like the most spiritual, but I can say it's typically not the one that everyone goes to.
Yes, yes, and that is why it's quite important to if you want to get anything out of. I mean, obviously, going to big museums in Stockholm is also an experience within itself, but I would highly recommend like researching about these places a little bit. Like get a little feel of where could I see something else. Something out in the nature because there's so much. And I agree with you. I really like the Blomsholm, the stone ship, and I've seen many of those around different parts of Sweden, and that one, and there's a huge stone ship in southern Sweden. It's Alestenar. Yeah,
Okay,
Alestenar.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Alestenar. I had to because Blomsholm and Alestenar, they are the same size. That's why
Okay,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but those two, the Alestenar one is so magical because you're high up on a cliff and you see the entire like Baltic Sea from
Oh,
there.
that's
It's
cool.
just by the cliff, where it goes down. It's so magical, and you can just imagine them being up there and looking at the sea, and
Mm,
it's so magical. And on that site they have found charcoal underneath one of the stones, so they have
mm.
probably had fires up there, and yeah, who knows. Super
Yeah,
cool, but
I think one
those.
of the things that was really incredible to me, learning both from you, but also just exploring, Sweden, is the difference in the water levels, because that's something you've talked about as well. Is during the Bronze Age and towards the Iron Age, like the water levels were much higher. And so, like, picturing these sites with higher sea levels really changes the perspective of why they chose the locations for them to make them.
Yes.
And that was a really cool, like, I don't know, the moment that clicked, it was like, something just came together. I'm like, okay, it's like you can almost see into the ancient past a little bit more thinking about the water levels.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's step one of learning how to make out the landscape in front of you, and imagine the ancient landscape, and how most graves and burial sites and ritualistic sites generally are higher up in the landscape always.
Yeah. Um, Something I was going to bring up too, which I thought was really interesting, is here in the United States, like burial mounds and things like that are really uncatalogued. Like at most, you have like a little marker or a sign that's been like disappeared. But I guarantee you, like a few times I've been walking through the woods and I see a mound in a very flat area. And I'm
Mm.
like, that is more than likely a burial mound. But it's like, we don't really have that vision here. A lot of people don't walk the United States with that image of the ancient world because we just assume the ancient world didn't exist before we got here. And so there is an element to the United States I think it's almost undiscovered. Like there's a couple main sites. There's like Serpent Mound near me. There's Cahokia. But there's so much that I think goes unnoticed here. And so I really encourage the American viewers because I mean I get a little doe-eyed and teary-eyed thinking about my time in
Mm.
Europe because I'm like I love talking about the stuff and exploring it. But I think a lot of Americans would be surprised that if you just open your eyes and see the world in this way. So, put yourself in the ancient mindset of the time before Europeans came to America, you'd be surprised how much is around us. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I have a little list in my head, different locations around the world where I would want to go, and there is in southern United States. I think it's close to the border to South America. There is a huge like city that has been chiseled out. Um, oh, where could it be? If
Oh, is it the
it's
one in like New Mexico or Arizona? Like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly,
I forget the name
exactly.
of it, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have the name either in my head right now, but that is one of those sites that uh, ever since I saw it, I've been like, wow, why did I not know about this? And then, as you say, there's so much undiscovered ancient leavings over there that have been, yeah, just
Yeah, I'll have to send you a picture. So I was looking at the city I live in now is Cincinnati, and it's like again I grew up near here, and I
mm,
was never told like, oh, there's a cool ancient history of this place. But I found out there's a really unique stone tablet that was found like when the city was being formed, and it has like these really unique drawings on it that no one talks about, and it's in the museum here. And I've been to the museum, I've never seen it because it's like in the back corner, shoved away with poor lighting. And it's like it's one of the coolest artifacts I've seen in this area.
no, no, no.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I find a picture of it. But seriously, it's like the coolest design. But obviously, there's an element of like the same thing with like Africa or a lot of the old world. They're like, oh well, they couldn't have made that. It's too
Oh,
nice.
yeah, no. Let me, now I'm raising my finger like this. Now it's a teaching moment, speaking about Africa and the ancient. In the old kingdom of the Aksumite kingdom, and their capital of Aksum, it's in today's Ethiopia mainly.
Yeah,
And there, the water reservoirs that were built in the old kingdom of Aksumite, it was during year zero up until around Viking age, so that people have some, yeah, know what kind of
yeah,
span we're talking about. Their water reservoirs are still the main, water supply to this day for the people living in that area.
yeah,
So it's like I go crazy when I hear this, these alien people talk about these African countries and South America and I mean all of America, to be frank, and all of I get so,
no,
they created wonderful things.
yeah. Now this might get us in hot water or me into hot water. I don't know how you feel about them. But like Graham Hancock. Have you watched Ancient Apocalypse?
Oh yeah, I watched. I got it recommended to me
Yeah.
by someone on Instagram, I think, and they were like, "Oh, you would love this. This is about like archaeology and so on." I had no idea who Graham Hancock was. I had
Oh
never
yeah.
heard his
He's a
name.
little kooky.
I started watching it, and my husband thought it was the funniest thing, so he even recorded me because I was just screaming at the TV, like, What are you saying right now? This is crazy." And yes, no, my feelings about Graham Hancock is very big.
Well,
We can say
the only thing I was going to say in season two, I was watching a little bit, and the thing I liked is they were talking about the lidar scans they've done of like the Amazon forest, and they have, so like removing him from the situation, like they're showing the proof, like,
that.
there's this idea that the Amazon forest was never like inhabited; it's always just been this massive jungle that no one's really
Yeah.
lived in, and they've been
Hmm.
doing these lidar scans, and they've been finding the imprints of buildings in the
Hmm.
Amazon. And
Yeah.
I just think it was really cool because they did this like, like 10-mile radius. And there was like evidence of like 40 buildings in this area. And they're
Oh
all
yeah.
like massive buildings. And so
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, without Graham Hancock, it's like, just focusing on the LiDAR scans, it's like there's so much about the ancient world we don't know.
Yeah.
And I do think that because we're kind of raised in this like Egyptology, Roman centric ideal of archaeology, where it's like, oh,
Mhm.
Egypt, we found most of that stuff. Rome, we know most about it. Like there's this idea that there's nothing else out there, but there's still so
Mm.
much, and I think that's
Oh
incredible.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, recently they found again a new human, a type of human. 300,000 years old. We know nothing. Like like even before the ancient time, the very very ancient time. We know
Ancient
so
plus.
little. Yeah, ancient. Like that's. I don't usually go into that area because it's even I lose myself in those time spans,
Yeah,
the evolutionary one. But it's so interesting, and as you say, we know so little about these people and their lives and their capacities, and we have so many. Um, we think we know, right? We think that we
yeah,
as you say, there's not much more, but people don't usually stop and think about, but before the pyramids, and why is the jungle here? What happened?
yeah.
What kind of people lived here? And like, oh,
I
I
remember my
love.
first great awakening with archaeology because I was taking like art history classes, and we were talking about like ancient Egypt, like before the pyramids and things. And they showed us like a picture of a rock carving in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and the rock carving was of giraffes, zebras, and elephants.
Yes,
And it's just
yes,
like, so that means they were here in the Sahara Desert. And it's like,
yeah, yes,
wow.
yes, yeah, right. Like the Sahara Desert was not the desert always. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it's crazy. But kind of reeling it in. So, going into America, because one of the other things we were talking about are these
Yes,
rune stones being found in America. And so I figured I would get the Swedish perspective of these American rune stones, or these at least North American rune stones. Or even
and
South American. That one was like, it's in South America.
oh yeah, yeah, the rune
Yeah.
carvings with the yeah. No, there was also a viral reel recently where there was a part in South America where apparently some kind of professor had been, and I think it spelled out his name in runes and
Oh, did
different
it?
characters. But you know what? It is actually perfect that you're asking a Swedish person about these rune stones or this. Rune carvings that have been found now in Canada and in the United States as well, because most of them are Swedish.
Hmm.
I can read them because they are carved in modern Swedish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
Um,
they're not like in an old dialect.
oh yeah, I mean they were probably made around the 1800s,
Yeah.
but the language. I mean, I can understand ancient Swedish as well, and
Mm.
Old Norse to some extent, because the language have not like really moved all that much.
Yeah.
Um, and since we share so much language with Norwegians and Danes, we also kind of learned their language, and they have kept several words that are older that is not used in Swedish, but we have kept other words that they might not. And we get a
Right. Yeah.
full-on language
Well, Danish.
package.
I've learned some Danish now. Danish is weird. They're like their own thing. Don't wrap them into your language. Your language is much easier to understand.
Uh, written Danish is very easy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So the moment they
but
start speaking, you're like, what was that?
yeah, it's like, can you say that slowly? No, but let's talk about the rune stone that was found in Canada.
Now, this is a relatively
And
recent article, right? Like it's been
that
researched for a
article,
few years, but it's
that
relatively
article
recent.
is new.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was discovered around 7 years ago, but I don't know if they haven't looked into it until now, or if they just haven't written about it until now. I have no
Yeah.
idea. But let's talk. The Canadian runestone, it had 250 runes, and when they started reading and translating these runes, they found out that it was a carving of the Lord's Prayer, but it was not only the Lord's Prayer, it was in Swedish, so Fader vår, it is in Swedish. And it is likely made during the 1800s because I don't know if this is well-known facts in America, but between 1800s and the early 1900s in Sweden, 25%, around 25% of our whole population moved to America.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't know
So
that.
so there was 25%, like around 1.2 to 1.5 million Swedes in relatively short amount of time moved to America. And that is why many of these rune carvings that have been found in America, both north and a bit southern and so on, they usually stem from the 1800s because of this, because this is it immigrant or emigrant?
Immigrant.
Immigrant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these Swedish immigrants that have come to America, they have taken a little bit of that with them, you know. So the Lord's Prayer was carved down in Swedish, and it is deemed to be 1800s because of the dialect and the way of how the Lord's Prayer is carved down. Because I mean, we have different versions for different ages in Sweden as well. And
Yeah, I'm reading the article. I'm not unfocused.
okay.
I'm just like dissecting it.
But one giveaway, and this goes for the Kensington runestone. I know you asked me about the Kensington runestone as well, and the same goes for that. One giveaway that these stones are historical, maybe not ancient, but they have historical value nonetheless because they tell another story, right? So I'm not coming in here and saying that these stones are useless. I'm saying they are very useful, but they tell another story than Eric the Red coming there. I know that most people want to think about Eric the Red coming there, but we have other proof of that, right? That the Norsemen came to America. But in the case of the Kensington runestone and this Canadian runestone, is that they have carved like you write on a paper from left to right in the Western world and in Europe as well, and like that you write from left to right like this, and that is also how they have carved it. They've carved it very neatly in rows like this, because that is how we know how to write and communicate with our language. But in ancient Scandinavia, a runestone, it goes like this. You know, it's completely chaotic, and you don't. Elder Futhark, you are reading backwards for whatever reason. I don't know why they did that, but Elder Futhark is always you read it backwards.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you always read it backwards. And the younger Futhark is usually carved, you know, very chaotically up and down and here and there, and not always with distance in between the runes. And there are these crosses, as you saw when you were in Sweden, like these crosses or dots in between the words. And so that is one like giveaway that it's probably from a time when paper has existed in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
And the Kensington runestone, it's also in Swedish. That's also how we know that it's not ancient. It's also in modern Swedish, so to say. and yeah, I don't know. Do you know what it says on it?
The Kensington one.
Yeah.
I'll have to do another little deep dive. I can't remember exactly what it says. I think it's another. I think it might be another Christian thing. But
Yeah,
what I can
it's
say of the one in Canada that is interesting is mostly they figured out right away, just because of, like you said, the way it was written, that it was in a modern creation. Um, but the thing that they found interesting is that they couldn't figure out when it was actually carved naturally, because they were like, the Lord's Prayer and the way it was written is in a similar style to the way it was written in like the 1600s, but there was no Swedes in Canada at the 1600s.
yeah.
But they said there was a republishing of that prayer in the 1800s, and that's when the
Yes.
Swedes were coming. And so
Hmm.
that's more than likely when it was carved, is because
Hmm.
that was when Swedes actually existed. They said it's still wild because it's like in the middle of nowhere. Like it's not
Yeah.
near a city or a town. Like it's in the middle of the forest in Canada. And I've been to Canada. And let me
Mhm.
tell you, it's huge. And it's just
Yeah.
Canada is just one big forest. And it's intimidating. So it is kind of wild of why there of all places.
Yeah, and you know what? If I were conducting a research there with where this stone is, I would start looking for patterns of has there been any settlements or houses or like because some of these older settlements they vanish because centralization and industrialization and so on that the people might have actually lived very closely to there. So I hope they look into that. That would be really interesting to see if there has been any houses there in close proximity.
So what it says in the Kensington runestone is 8 great Geats and 22 Norwegians on an exploration journeying from Vinland to the west. So definitely it was created as a way to try to like sell that story for sure.
Yeah.
Um, very specific, yeah, because again, when I've learned of runestones, they never say like I was creating this because I was going somewhere. It's like no, I did this because I was
Mhm.
wanted to get laid or someone died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And since it is in Swedish as well, it is as you say, it's when Swedes came there, so it makes it pretty like easily
Yeah. It is
figure
interesting
out.
because, like, me as an American thinking about it, like, of course, I wanted to think, how far did Vikings make it? And in a way, we don't know. Like, we do know of the settlement. We know at least they made it to Canada,
Yes.
Aulo Meadow, whatever it's called, which
Hmm.
I've always wanted to go there. But let me tell you, I've looked up the way to get there. It is also in the middle of nowhere. Everything in Canada
Yeah.
is in the middle of nowhere. I think for me to drive there would be like 23 hours from where I'm at now. Um,
Wow.
and to fly there, like I would have to fly to like Montreal, and then I think it's still another 9 hours drive from Montreal. It's
Um,
seriously in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, you
um,
need to have like pure dedication going, like just taking yourself to that location. That's
yeah,
crazy.
but I think there is a lot of hype around it. Like obviously there was this legend around like how far did the Vikings come? Did they make it
Yeah.
to Minnesota? Well, they did. Technically, the Vikings did make it to Minnesota. They just immigrated there instead.
Yeah, a bit later.
Yeah, yeah. And now I have, this is more just through osmosis and conversation, but I've actually talked to members of a Native American tribe from West Virginia, and
Mm-hmm.
they have legends of blonde haired people coming through at some point in their history.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, and they said that they have the story from like, 1,000 years ago, blonde hair, blue eyed people came through here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so maybe, but did they have
Mm-hmm.
a village in the middle of America? Probably not, and stuff like that. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, it's. I mean, it is not unlikely that I mean you can go from Scandinavia through Britain to Iceland to Greenland, and like if you have these pit stops, so to say, and then you can make it there, right? But the question is how many places did they actually go to, and for how long, and yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been too successful since they didn't stay around.
Yeah,
Settlements take a couple of tries at least. I mean, look at Greenland. It takes a couple of, and Iceland.
yeah. Now,
Um,
isn't I know this is an article I read a long time ago now, but they found traces of like Native American DNA in like people from Iceland, as well
mhm.
as I think people from Denmark. So like they possibly were taking slaves or, possibly not slaves back to Iceland with
Hmm.
them to some small extent, not to a great extent,
Hmm.
but obviously there was at least
Hmm.
a small window of some kind of exchange going on.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's absolutely not impossible, and it's not even unlikely that there has been contact.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, and I mean, this year in school I've studied ancient DNA, and I have learned so much about that part of history as well. Like the how the DNA side of things
Halpio
work.
groups and stuff like that, where they're called.
Yes.
I have a book that like talks about like I think it's called The Blood of the Celts, and I was trying to read it,
Oh.
and it was just all so over my head because it was all talking about like the Halpio groups or whatever, and I was like,
Oh
like
yeah.
that's not my side of the history.
No, and like with that stuff, you really have to start at the beginning. You have to start at when this discovery was made, by whom, how does it work, and like you have to start from the very beginning, and then go through the evolution of mankind and so on. It takes a long time to learn about these things.
Yeah,
So
like
I don't
here's
blame you.
it's like this little like blood
Ah,
map, and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, no, it takes a while. You
Oh no,
really
there
those
it
things.
is. There it is. That's the thing that broke me.
Yeah, exactly. No, you have to really like learn the very basics of the scientific part of it, and that's not for everyone, and it's not easy to understand. Like it's very hard, but it's so interesting when you get into it. It's
Yeah.
and it again it proves the human DNA proves time and time again how humans have, you know, uh, wandered. We have wandered. It's a recent phenomenon now that we have borders and we can't wander and we can't explore. And we need the passport and we need the this and that and third and we need finances. But before, like people have just walked and walked and walked, and they have met other people and yeah, it's wonderful that that DNA actually proves that we are more similar than we will ever be different.
Yeah. Well, was it you and I that were talking about that woman, like that body was studied and they found evidence of her, like in her lifetime from like the ancient past, traveling all the way down to like southern Germany, then all the way back up north again, like three times or something like that. Like they were able to discover that through her DNA or something. That,
Yeah.
I can't remember that story, but
Mhm.
yeah, there was, yeah, it was, someone thousands of years ago, a woman, no less, that was traveling all across her life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and this is something that many people also don't know is that, for example, during the everyone knows that the Vikings, oh, they sailed left and right and here and there. Many people don't know that, yeah, people during the Stone Age traveled with their little canoes, over seas and stuff as well, and ended up very far away from where they were born. As well as during the Bronze Age, we have found evidence of a complete, uh, international trade network, like a big economy that
Yeah.
has spanned all over Europe and the Eurasia and so on.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It really is. And then, like, my study is more into the Celtic these last few years and what the Celtic means. I read a really good book. It's by Miranda Outhouse Green called Sacred Britannia. And it goes into like the ancient history of Britannia and Scotland. And they're talking about like the migrations coming over of the people from like Doggerland area. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like just randomly in history, like this group of people showed up and started building like big houses in the middle of the woods in Scotland for like 200 years and then
Mm-hmm.
they disappeared, and it's like no one know where they went. And so it's like you just have these strange migrations of humans that have popped up in all cultures that leave their mark on all of us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then even thinking about America, like I remember seeing a map, like most of Americans have some German ancestry, some Irish, a little Polish, a little
Mm-hmm.
Italian. Like we're all so mixed. It's really incredible.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean, if you look further back, I mean, it is so we are just like someone has put us all in a big mixing bowl and just went like this, and it's like, okay, you move where it's humid and warm, you move where it's desert and warm, you move there and there and there, and then we look different, but it's incredible. And yeah, in America, it's very interesting. I bet it is. I know we talked about this, the
Yeah.
DNA, the ancestry thing before,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the tests, and I can imagine it's very interesting taking those tests since, as you say, you have been recently very like all mashed together back
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
forth, and so it's cool. Can I tell you? Yes, this is a. Can I tell you a funny little short
Bring it.
story
Bring it.
about that? Okay, so I did. Me and my husband, we did the ancient DNA test, right? Because I was studying ancient DNA and I got so into it. So I wanted to know like, I want to know like how accurate are they? I know that the commercial tests are not, they don't go that far back, and most of them claim and promise stuff that you cannot find out through
Yeah.
those type of tests. But I did the ancestor one, and I found something so hilariously funny. If anyone is not aware, there is like this dispute between Sweden and Denmark, right? We have been at war with each other, but that has now turned into a brotherly, banter back and forth. That Danes, they are saying bad things about Swedes. The Swedes are saying bad things about the Danes. But if someone from the outside attacks either of us, then we go attack them like siblings, basically. But so in my ancestry test came back, and it went from like east, south Europe through Czech Republic and Austrian mountains, and it went up through Germany, around Denmark, and then to Sweden and Norway. So
Just skipped
travel
over
through like, and then no, to Sweden.
it. That is really funny. I remember what was it? Someone I met recently were talking about how in their DNA test, like their father was always like, "We are 100% Irish," and then they
Mm.
did the test, and it's like, no, they were like nothing. There was no Irish in there. So it's like,
Who
yeah, I
has
don't know if,
life?
yeah. Oh, I still
Uh,
to this day, I remember when I first started YouTubing and like Vikings was really big at that
yeah.
time. And the amount of people that would be like, I am a direct descendant of Ragnar Lothbrok.
Oh my lord. We it's so interesting how you can be a descendant of a fictional to us character, like
Yeah.
it's
And I
but
had a comment just the other day. Someone was like, I just got into, they're like, I found your channel because I recently found out I'm a descendant of Ragnar Lothbrok. And I'm like, oh, this is still going on? Like, this is like a week ago.
and this is due to the I think this is due to those unserious companies that are cashing in on this DNA stuff. They
Yeah.
say that, oh, but you're a descendant of this and that and third. It's like, this is how it works. Now, I'm gonna lay it out. This is how
Lay
it
it out.
works. So back in the day, it was seen as something, like how kings, they were descendants of the gods. The kings were chosen by God, and so forth. Even
Yeah.
during medieval era. Yeah. So it was something to boast about if you were related to Odin, if you were the son, like you have been chosen by Odin, or you have been chosen by any other god, and you were the chosen one and the main character, and da 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 da. You were the jarl of the village, so to say. And it is not that hard. Before DNA tests existed, and nature sciences had caught up, it was not too hard to write who was your father on a piece of paper, because you
Oh,
wanted them
yeah.
to be your father. And then it was there in the church books, like this baby has been born and this is the father. Or they had left the father out of it, for example.
Yeah.
So that little thing is, many people don't know that we don't actually have a lot of the DNA proof. We have the written proof from the church books, and
Yeah.
and the humans lie a lot.
What?
Yeah, I'm so.
Never experienced this.
Oh, speaking of that, Jacob, you wanted to go over that other question, right?
The only other one I had, what was it? Mental health was the only one
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
speaking
No.
of the people lie, and yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's an important part of mental health. Um, no. So before we get to that, we did have a kind of like an offshoot question I wanted us to answer because I was curious. Was there
Yeah,
anything
shoot.
else you wanted to mention about the grave robbing? Because I know that was kind of one of the reasons, the catalyst for this. But is there anything as far as like awareness? Because like, I mean, there's not much anything thing everyday people can do to stop besides like don't support and purchase from archaeological websites, like, or saying they're like, oh, we're selling authentic Viking stuff, because like that's just
Oh,
not a thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, so what I want to make clear is that even though they have the magical paper, it is illegal. It is completely illegal. It's unethical. There is no ethical way to buy something that has been grave robbed. You are not paying any respect to anyone doing that, because I have also seen that coming up like in my feed sometimes, where people are actually even selling. So they're making a profit out of selling these things, like, oh, I'm selling ancient jewelry and authentic jewelry, and as paying homage to the ancient world, and they never really make it clear where they have gotten these things from. What is the provenience? Where do they come from?
Yeah.
Um, and also I've seen other people that, oh, but I have Norse roots, I have Swedish, I have Norwegian, I have this, I'm a Viking, and they are not. You're not paying actually respect to anyone by wearing and purchasing these historical people's burial goods.
Yeah.
Because and this is also something that has touches upon why archaeologists in Sweden do not dig up every grave we know about, because there is an ethical code there. Like, these people are very real. They were people just like you and me and everyone else, and these are their graves. Like, we cannot just randomly dig them up because we're curious. Like, that's not how things work. Like, these are their last resting place, and we need to honor that.
Yeah.
We need to honor the dead and the history and so on. So just that everyone is aware that whatever any auction house says to you, for one, it might be forgeries. I've seen those examples as well, where it says like, oh, Scandinavian, like Viking helmet, and then it's like a little bit rusty here and there, and the chainmail is all fine.
Yeah.
With the soil conditions we have around here, there's no way that you would have like a nice and a little bit rusty helmet with the chainmail still dangling. Like, that's iron. For those who don't know, when you find it, usually in archaeological context, it looks like this, and then you
Yeah.
have to carefully use procedures to get something out of this clump, because that's how metal works, how iron works. But then it's also the fact that even though these auction houses say that, oh, but this is authentic, but it's ethical, it's like you can't have both. You
It's like,
cannot. Like,
yeah, it's like saying a cigarette company is like, oh, it's like, it's clean tobacco. It's like, oh, no, there's no such
yeah,
thing.
yeah, no, exactly, no, but it comes from the earth, so it doesn't harm you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so that is something that I really want to make clear, that there's no ethical way. And that is also, about the Skåne Mjölnir, right? Don't you? Do you own a Skåne Mjölnir even, or
The
do you
one that
have?
the one that Rennet gave me.
Yes, that is the Skåne Mjölnir, right?
Oh, yeah. 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 I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Look, there it is. You have an example right there. The Skåne Mjölnir that Jacob is wearing, it is called the Skåne Mjölnir because we don't know where it came from. Skåne is a county like this big, it's a very big county in Sweden, and we have no idea when it was found, where it was found. It just says somewhere that it was through an archaeological digging in Skåne that someone gave it to some rich person and they had it in their collections.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so the history of the Skåne Mjölnir and the context is also completely, the artifact within itself, besides being pretty, is completely useless, because it has
Because we
been
don't know where we
removed.
found. Yeah.
Yeah, it has been removed, and I mean, it's such an amazing find. It was kept because, I mean, look at it. It's beautiful, and it says something about the
Allhere.com.
signs, and yeah, it says something
Yeah.
like about art, right? So it's
Yeah.
still useful, but the artifact itself, it's yeah.
Yeah. No, that
So
totally
that
makes
is,
sense. Well, I think that's not a shameless plug moment, but there are a lot of great crafters out there that do recreations of these things that are going to be much prettier to wear. Again, like, perfect example. This was gifted to me when I came and visited you and Rennet in Sweden, and it's like, it's really amazing. It's held up well. It still looks great. And it's like, this is going to be much better quality than if I went to Sweden and stole it from the museum, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, if you wear like authentic ancient jewelry, it won't hold up. Like, it won't. It simply won't. Like, there is no reason to have it at all outside of science. You know.
Yeah.
And if you get it like you, it's handmade. You know where it came from. You know who's made it. Like,
Yeah.
it is so to say a one-to-one with the original. So
Yeah.
why not have replicas? Many people make really good replicas.
Yeah. But don't drop ship your Mjolnirs, kids. Don't get
No,
them from China. Support.
no.
Yeah. Oh, especially like there's so many amazing like Ukrainian crafters. And especially supporting Ukrainian crafters right now is really big. It might take you some time to get some stuff from them, but like, oh my gosh, the amount of amazing like woodwork I've seen come from Ukraine and things like that is incredible.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and like um, it has so much more soul, and it won't give you rashes and lead poisoning if you
Yeah.
get them from.
Well, and let me tell you, you're not going to get any magical powers having something from a burial grave. You'll just get a rash.
Exactly. Yeah, you will get a curse. That is what you will get.
Yeah, honestly, the amount
And
of like, there's
karma.
several runestones that just literally say if you like grave rob
Oh yeah,
this, you're getting a curse. Like,
yeah. If you like, there is a guy he's carved very specifically. Like, if you destroy my wife's burial mound, I will curse you to like the end and beyond and back, and like you will get all kinds of sicknesses and diseases. Like, don't
yeah,
don't don't destroy the stone, don't touch your grave, don't do anything.
yeah, absolutely. No one has ever blessed a grave. Like, if you steal from this grave, you will receive blessings. No, that like, if anything, it's always the opposite. If you steal from this grave, you will be cursed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then also, like, yeah, I wouldn't dare to, I worked at a museum, and let me tell you, there are a lot of ghost stories going on at museums around these artifacts.
I guarantee it. I remember, so there
Mhm.
was from the spiritual angle, we're just rambling on at this point, but from the spiritual angle, I went to one of my favorite burial sites in Scotland, Corrimony, and it's the only thing we think about this grave is that it was a woman was buried there 5,000 years ago, and the way that she was buried implies that they think that she was some kind of priestess because she was buried alone, and there was lots of quartz crystals left in the graves as well. But the body was completely disintegrated, like you can only tell from
Mhm.
the imprint. And so I've
Mhm.
done a lot of meditations there and had a lot of really good connections. And I wanted to take a stone from there for my own spiritual like reasons.
Mhm.
And I picked up the stone and spiritually immediately felt very negative. And it was just
Yep.
like, you should not take this stone. And I was like, ooh, like just
Yes.
immediately. And the only thing that like I did end up going back and I hadn't done the meditation. And like in a way, I was told like if you want to take a stone from this grave, you have to leave something equally as valuable. So they're always, and that's one of the things with like Native American traditions. Like if you take like even a bone from the forest, you have to give something in return.
Yeah.
And so that's something we always tell people at like our nonprofit events here is if you take a bone from the woods, always have like tobacco that you leave behind. And so that's, stuff like that. So even like the small things, there's a lot of great reverence to. And
Mhm.
then of course, like when it comes to like burial graves, just don't do it. There's no amount
Yeah.
of tobacco.
No. 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 There's nothing that will save you from that misfortune.
Not even a mead.
No,
Uh,
nothing.
but yeah, so we've been going on a while here, but there was a question I wanted us
Sorry.
to kind of yeah, no. I'm always saying that because it's later for you. I'm fine. I'm still early in my day. But
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed our conversation. We've been going a while. But the last question we had someone, and anytime someone asks these things, it's clearly because they're looking for advice. As we had
Mhm.
someone ask us in the comments, are any advice we can give on mental health? And I think they were kind of looking for a spiritual angle as well. But, I figured it's something we could touch on because we're both human beings. All human
Yeah.
beings have mental health issues, and we all navigate them differently. So, is there any advice that you could give people here at the end if they're struggling right now?
Yeah, you know what? We can even divide this answer that maybe you can take the more spiritual angle and I can take the practical angle since I am a very practical uh, woman. I'm a
Yeah,
stone and metal woman
yeah,
through and through. So yeah, one advice, because like, we all go through different things. Everyone has different like things going on in their life, different things that has happened in the past, different things that are going on now, hard times and so on. Like no one is living life at a high happy, at all times. And one thing that I discovered through life, because I am getting closer to my mid 30s now, and I have some life experience, and every time where I have not felt good, every time where I have struggled with mentally, like psychologically, is when I have been out of my element. When, for example, that is where I started studying, because I felt so out of, I was kind of miserable, even though I didn't have anything really against my job. I used to work as an industrial welder. It was a lot of fun. I loved it, working with my hands, great. But I was kind of miserable the last years as being a welder. And it wasn't because I didn't have money. It wasn't because I hated my job per se, but I was very much not doing what I probably was meant to do. I was kind of out of place. So when I started studying history, because that is where my heart has been all my life, when I started going in that direction instead, great things started happening. Both in my personal life, in my um, academic life, in even with work and jobs and so on. Like when you really do something that you are super passionate about, and it doesn't need to be like your line of work or something. It could just be that you allow yourself to do something that really ignites passion within you, then great things will follow. Like and my mental health also went up. Like it skyrocketed as well after taking that time to figuring myself out a little bit more. Like, what do I like? What I have one life. What do I want to do with it? Where do I want to put my energy? And when you stop for a moment and you're not too caught up in work, family, friends, like routines, when you break off the routine a bit and you like sit with yourself and like, what do I really enjoy? No matter what that is, like go for it. Go do more of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that has made such a huge. It's night and day. That is what I have experienced, at least in my life.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I can definitely relate to a lot of my own journey with that. And I think a lot of my advice is relatively similar. It's trusting your intuition, and I think intuition is a beautiful blend between psychology and spirituality, because I find intuition to be almost a spiritual presence, because it kind of comes out of nowhere and tells you what to do, and then we have to learn to trust our gut and trust our intuition and things. Like for me, we were talking about beforehand, me taking a little bit of a step back from YouTube this year was kind of hard, because it's something that's been part of my life for so long. But there was a divine intuition in the negative, in the sense that like I was sitting there filming a video and I was like, I hated the process. I was like, I couldn't be bare, or like turn the camera on. I hated everything I made. I sat down to edit and I hated the process. And I had to sit there, and it's like, I need to listen to myself, whether that's a spiritual presence telling me I need to do it or just myself. And I need to take a step back. But the craziest thing happened. Like I've just been working as a bartender for like the last 6 months, because it's always been my fallback. And I was working at the bar the other night, and I was just like right in the middle of like ending the day. And then it was like a lightning bolt struck me, and it was like, it's time to start waking up again. And I just turned around. I looked towards the manager. I'm like, I need to cut back my hours because I got to work on other shit now. It was
Hmm.
like instantaneous, like, this polar opposite end of, this negative. You need to take a step back. And then out of nowhere, you need to take a step forward again.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just learning to trust that, and listen to it, because there was a part of me that was always fighting it, that step back of not actually relaxing, of resting, because that's what I needed to do.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, just trust that gut. And whether you think that gut reaction is a divine intervention, a force, or if you just think it's yourself, regardless, listen to it. And
Yeah.
yeah, no one knows you better than you.
Yeah, I agree, and it obviously is not just for professional, in professional context. It is also very much. Sometimes people feel like if you are in a relationship that is maybe not good. Maybe you're not happy there. It doesn't have to mean that you hate the person. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person, but maybe you've just developed differently. And people usually have this kind of thing that I have put in so much effort and
Mm.
time into this, and it goes for relationship, work, maybe a building project, maybe an education that you don't really like that much how it turned out, and like you put so much time and effort into something, then people have a really hard time stepping back from that. Like you have made a whole YouTube career, right? And you put so much time and effort into this that it is scary taking that step back and be like, wait, wait.
Yeah.
So also don't be scared of something that you have put a lot of effort into, that maybe you don't need to do that all the time. Maybe it's not good right now.
Yeah, well, and I think
Um,
it's like what you said, do stuff that makes you happy, especially when you're the lowest. Obviously don't, do vices, don't get into drugs or alcohol or anything like
oh,
that.
oh my God,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. But
No, no.
also do things that, bring you joy. And, YouTube was a thing that used to bring me joy. And the moment it stopped being something that brought me joy, it was time to reconsider. And that's the same thing. The reason we get into relationships, we find love is because we want to have joy with someone else. And if you find that that joy isn't there anymore, it's time to reconsider. And it's true of jobs, careers, whatever. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, are we just not here to find joy in our lives? And if we don't have that, we need to look at the things that don't bring it to us and the things we wish would.
Yeah, exactly. And as adults, I feel like we lose many people lose so much of that childish spark, that you have when you are a child. You're completely unapologetic for engaging in your favorite things, whatever that is. Like, you have 10 books about, I don't know, like the Roman age or something, like you're super into that, and you make little statues and you make little outfits, and you make, when you're a child, you completely immerse yourself with these things that make you happy, that you like, whether it's colors or topics or toys or shows or whatever. And I feel like whenever I am, because obviously um, no one is happy all the time. Let's make that clear as well. Like
Yeah,
no one is.
absolutely no one.
You will have lows, even when you're happy in life and high. Like on life, you will have tough patches, because it happens. And then I found as well that just allowing myself to watch, stuff that is not educational. I'm very educational oriented. Like I'm very much like hyper focused on. I only basically, besides Stephen King, I only read fact books. Research papers and stuff like that, because I love that. That is just who I am. But then when I feel really really low, I watch Korean dramas about unanswered love, or like Pretty Little Liars, a show in the early 2000s for teenage girls in some suburb in America. Like I completely disconnect that part of my brain that makes me as well. Like
Mm,
allow yourself to indulge in things that are silly. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think silliness is so key. Learning to laugh at yourself and find the joy, those little moments, and acting like a kid in a healthy way. But
Hmm.
yeah, you just made me think of something else to say here, and
Yeah.
something that's really helped me is ritual, and it doesn't have to be sitting under the sunset with a mead horn pouring it out. Like that's not what I mean. Like for me, a ritual could be something as small as a daily coffee. For me, I did the math last month. I spent like $150 US on my daily coffees for a month, which is not bad. It's not bad for coffee for me, but at the same time, that $150 a month, because I do have a coffee immediately after this podcast, I will go have a coffee at a cafe.
Hmm.
That is a mental health thing for me because I
Hmm.
absolutely love just sitting in a cafe, reflecting on my day and drinking a cappuccino.
Yeah.
Um, and $150 a month, it might sound a lot to people that only spend 10 a month on coffee, but for me, it's for my mental health. It's for my joy. And so
Hmm.
it's part, it's a ritual. If I don't do, I feel the worse for it. And so finding healthy rituals for yourself, whether it's a daily walk, a cup of coffee, doing things a certain way or cooking dinner or whatever, finding what rituals for you lead to a happier life. And then realizing when you get off the path of those rituals, like, hey, when's the last time I did my rituals? The
Hmm.
10 things I do a day that make me happy. And it's like, oh shoot, I haven't done two of them. For me, like yoga is another one. I realize when I don't do it. So yeah, find those rituals that lead you to have a better life every day, and do your best to do them as often as possible.
Yeah, and like as long as it's not destructive behavior, as long as it's not something that will you will have to pay for, like
Yeah,
further down the line. It's like
yeah. Don't do like 4 beers a day. Don't do that.
yeah, no, no, you might think it makes you happy, but
Yeah,
maybe not when you're low. At least you can
yeah, yeah,
have it just enjoying life and not getting caught up too much in oh, I need to do the right thing. I need to do what's productive. I need to eat this kind of diet. I need to exercise this amount of like. You should start within. In my opinion, and everything else goes so much
yeah.
easier for sure. And be silly. Dare to be
Be silly.
silly, and surround yourself with people who like you when you are silly.
What was it? This would be a great closing because it was the closing of one of our other episode like videos we did when I
Mm-hmm.
was in Sweden, as we were talking about the frogs that have no ears.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Be
Oh
silly,
yeah,
especially around midsummer. Small group
yeah.
enough.
It is. It is. Dance like a frog, jump like a frog. They have no tails. They have no
Yeah,
ears.
I've made a lot of Americans dance to that song now. I hope you know.
I'm proud. I'm proud. You're spreading the Swedish culture beyond.
Yeah, everyone wants
Wait,
to talk about the Viking age. No, small group enough.
yeah, no, no. It's all about midsommarssmå. That is a perfect analogy. Like Swedes are usually seen as this closed-off, cold people. But once a year, every Swede becomes a silly little frog with all of the children and the other adults.
Yeah, no, that is the meaning of life, right there to me.
Yeah.
All right. With that, we've been almost going 2 hours here. So I hope everyone
Oh my
enjoyed
lord.
that. Yeah, I know. I hope everyone
Yeah.
enjoyed this episode talking about everything ranging from happy little frogs dancing to grave robbing and Vikings in America. So I hope everyone got something out of this. Make sure you check out Lynn's work with Moose Lady account stuff. And then Volhere stuff as well helps support you and your family. So
Yes.
support Volhere and anything else people can look for you or support you.
No, it's mainly, yeah, follow me on social media if you want to learn a bunch of stuff. I release a lot of educational content. I also draw stuff. I do not sell any drawings or anything like that, but I'm just happy to talk about mythology all around the world, as well as the Valhyr stuff. This is a sneak preview. This is a new collection dropping soon.
Oh yeah, showed off.
Oh, so
What
keep your
is it? Just like cave paintings or petroglyphs? Yeah,
these
yeah.
are cave paintings. We
Oh
are
yeah, I see
going
like the hen.
we are going Paleolithic with it.
The
So
Paleolithic line coming soon to volhere.com.
yeah,
All right, with everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you got something out of it. Let us know down below what you thought, and we'll see you the next time Lynn and I are able to get together, hopefully in Sweden. But bye bye.